Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from our_food 9053. AITA for demanding my husband to kick her mom out of house, or else I would sell the house. My, 29, and my partner, 42, purchased a home over a year ago. When we purchased this home, the plan was to build mother-in-law an ADU in the backyard to have our privacy, as well as so she can have hers. Prior to this, she had been living with my partner for a year or so. That way she can pay off debt and regroup and move somewhere else. Anyways, fast forward to when we moved in. MIL came and saw the house for the first time, and saw that the room she was going to be staying in had its own restroom. She was beyond happy. I was confused as to why she was so happy, since this is supposed to be temporary. Anyways, important information. Around where we moved by there is a mountain, and unfortunately there are a lot of coyotes, hawks, and predators for small dogs. One day she tells me in a panic tone that a huge crow almost tried to snatch up my little Frenchie. I was in shock and checked the cameras immediately. Upon viewing the video, I was expecting my mother-in-law to have a crazy reaction. In the video, I can see a huge crow charge at my dog, and then follow her because it's trying to find a way to pick her up. In the video, my mother-in-law is seen just smoking, staring, and watching this all go down. She didn't get up, didn't yell, just literally continued to smoke her cigarette and stare. This was a huge red flag to me, but I tried to push it aside since that's his mom. I showed my family the video, and the bird is huge. During Thanksgiving, my sister mentioned how big the bird was and how close it was to my dog, where my mother-in-law was confused and asked how she knew or if it happened again. My sister mentioned that she saw it from the cameras. I'm assuming she didn't know I watched or had access or pulled the footage. She immediately had a weird look on her face where she asked me, "Does the video have sound?" I told her it didn't because it did not. She mentioned, "Oh, because I was yelling so hard for Mila." This is a blatant lie. I can see her mouth from the video from two different angles. She lied to me, to my family. I pushed it aside because, again, that's his mom, and I was trying to push away negative thoughts. A couple of months in, my boyfriend mentions to me that his plan for the ADU was actually to pull out of the mortgage. I immediately said we are absolutely not doing that, which he understood. A week or so later, I asked how much money my mother-in-law has saved since she's lived with him for over a year and now lives with us, rent-free, and makes a decent income. To my surprise, my partner mentioned $0. I could not believe that after all this time, she managed to save nothing. And it didn't seem like she had any plans to save for this ADU. At that point, I told my partner I no longer felt comfortable with going on with the plans on building one, since I'm not jeopardizing my home and hard work for her lack of responsibility. I will say when I was talking to my partner about this, I was kind of loud. Well, I'm not sure if she overheard me, but the following week she was giving me the cold shoulder. At that time, she didn't have many responsibilities. She would take my two small dogs out to the bathroom and would put diapers on them. One day after arriving home after a long day, I come home to soiled diapers on both my pups. I brought this up to my partner, and I guess he brought it up to his mom, where she then responded back with one of my dogs hurting her back, so that's why she didn't do it. There was so much tension in the house, and I'm someone who hates conflict, that one day she did something that ended up with me having my first panic attack on my way to work, where my hands started to cramp up and shut close while driving. After this happened, I stayed at my parents', since clearly my health was getting affected. My partner said he would talk to his mom. Well, that night she told him that she wanted to talk to him about me not liking her. She said that she overheard me and my friends calling her the B word, not true, and that she has tried to build a relationship with me, and that I'm not interested. Also, that she saw us in stuff under the covers. We weren't. He was rubbing my stomach since I was having period cramps. And that she's upset that we took her toilet paper from the garage without asking. My partner knew that at least 2 or 3 things were incorrect since he was there, but the fact that she tried spinning this to her favor and at my house was upsetting to me. During this time, she left for about 3 weeks, which was great. Things were awkward when she came back, but we moved past it. One day she mentioned that she was going to be gone for a week so she can check out some places out of state. I said, okay, and waited for her to leave, but she never went. It almost felt like she never had plans to do this. She was just telling me this to make me feel bad. Time went on, and she was still here at the house, where I complained to my partner again. He then had another conversation with her about what her plans were, and if she needed for us to help her save money by having her pay us rent. She got offended and mentioned she didn't want to live here and that she's been looking but can't find anything. About a month after that, she finally left. She was going to be giving this place she found a try, and big shocker, she didn't like it. So she said she would need to come back, but this time only for 2 months, so she can save and find a place. Keep in mind, during all this time, she never paid rent and isn't able to help out around the house. Unfortunately, also during this time, life happened, and my grandma passed. My mother-in-law gave me her condolences, asked me where my grandma was having her services so she could go, also so she can send flowers. She went as far as to ask me what food I would like for her to bring, and she did none of those things. Now I had zero expectations for her to do anything. However, when you say you're going to do something and don't follow through, that's where I question someone's character. On the day of my grandma's funeral, my dad passed. Needless to say, this was probably the worst time of my life. I had been missing a lot of work, so I asked my boyfriend to see if he can ask his mom to pitch in since it's getting tight for me. Oh, and also because she's been living here rent-free for months. I forgot the reasoning, but her paying rent didn't happen. Time went on, and a couple of months ago, I complained to my partner again about having his mom pay rent. This time, when he was going to say something to her, his mom somehow beat him to the punch. She was claiming that she was depressed and doesn't feel comfortable at the house. She then asked for an inheritance that she gifted him about 10 years ago back. I was in disbelief. To ask for a gift back is truly distasteful and actually so sad for my partner. Unfortunately for him, he's blinded by love for his mom. His mom does no wrong. So, since my partner didn't want to kick her when she was down, he saved the paying rent conversation for another day. Now I hate to see the bad in people. However, I feel like my mother-in-law says things to make people feel bad for her, because out of nowhere, she mentioned to a family member that she is going to have to move to an even farther state to be able to afford to live. A family intervention was made where she admitted that when we decided no more ADU, she spent the $10,000 she supposedly had saved. When my partner tried to bring up finances because there is no way she hasn't saved, she immediately said, "No talking about finances." That conversation went nowhere that day. Even through all this, call me a dum-dum, but I was still willing to make it work as long as she paid a little rent. And when her income drops and she qualifies for low-income housing, she can leave. I bugged my partner again, where I threatened this time that if he didn't tell her to pay rent, that I would have to do it. He didn't want that, so finally, he built the courage to do it, and the conversation went great. She agreed to pay on the 20th, and then again on the 1st. Well, this is what my partner told me. I was happy, and finally, this is going to be a I help you, you help me situation. Well, shortly after the 23rd of this month, I was finishing my workout, and my partner got home and took both my dogs outside to pee-eat. He left them outside since my mother-in-law was smoking outside. During that time frame, my small poodle walked away, and no one was paying attention to him for 11 minutes. My partner said he thought he was safe since she was outside. And coyotes don't usually come that close to humans. She was on her phone, not paying attention, and I'm 99% sure he got taken by a coyote. After that day, I broke. I was angry at both of them for being so careless. After watching the footage, she saw him walk off and said nothing. The very next day, she acted as if nothing had happened, as if I didn't just lose my baby, then looks at my PJs and says, "Ah, those are cute PJs." After that day, I no longer was willing to make it work and immediately wanted her out. Everything, and I mean everything, that was piled in within me to keep the peace just came out and went in the trash. That's when I told my partner that I want my mother-in-law to leave, or we are all leaving because we're selling the house. As weirdly as her timing is, that same day she ended up hurting her knee, where he had to take her to the emergency room. Luckily, there was a Thanksgiving miracle, because the very next day, she was walking as normal as she does. He told her on Thanksgiving the predicament that he was in, where she then told him she will leave after the holidays, but that she was also mad. She then said, "BTW, I think she's taking you away from your family, and she holds her nose up high and thinks she's better than us. I have no words, and I want her out, and I'm questioning this whole relationship in general." He's the reason to blame for not setting boundaries and letting it get this out of hand. With that said, AITA for giving him an ultimatum? OP is not an AH for feeling frustrated. OP's husband is an AH for failing to set boundaries with her mom. OP's mother-in-law is also an AH for disturbing the peace of OP's family. OP's demand to set boundaries is completely justified. So, I would rate OP's husband 1.5 and OP's mother-in-law 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from CC Kadaz. AITA for being upset that my twin brother hid a relationship with my best friend from me. I, F16, have a twin brother, M16, and a best friend, F16, whom I've known for years. Our relationship is sweet and lighthearted, and though we don't hang out much, it's nice to have her as a friend. My brother and I have to share a room because we are twins, which is unfortunate, though I don't usually mind it. My best friend has become friends with both of us, and we often hang out as a trio. It's worth mentioning that I also have a partner whom I met in freshman year, and they are friends with both me and my brother. My brother and I are homeschooled online. For some weeks straight, my brother was calling my best friend every night, though I didn't find it weird. A few weeks ago, on November 9th, my brother and I went to my best friend's house to watch a show together for fun. While we were there, I noticed they were being very cuddly, not just in a hugging way but actually cuddling in front of me and next to me. I didn't say anything about it because I used to cuddle with my friends all the time and figured it was whatever. Soon after we finished watching what we came to watch, they started excluding me from everything they were doing and whispering things while I was right next to them, which made me feel like I was being talked about in a bad way. So, I asked them what it was, to which they said nothing, so I left it. Still, for the next 4 hours, I was being purposefully excluded while they were touching each other, and it felt weird. On the drive home, my brother made it a point to hide his phone from me. Ever since I knew my best friend, and since my brother was old enough to form his own opinion on a relationship, all I've known is that they were completely against the idea of one. Every relationship they tried to be in with other people failed because they couldn't grasp the idea of romance. I didn't mind this and didn't try to push it. That night, when I was being treated horribly, I had the urge to check my brother's phone because I felt anxious about whether they were talking about me and why they were treating me poorly. I told my brother how I felt, to which he said he didn't really care. I also told my best friend, and she assured me they weren't whispering about anything, and if it was serious, they'd tell me. Then I found out about their entire relationship. Needless to say, I wasn't necessarily happy about it, but after some hours, I let it brush over me and accepted it. However, I still wanted to talk to them about it. I gave it a day for my feelings to wash over, and during that day, they found out that I found out. I expected them to confront me immediately, but the next day, my best friend texted me like things were normal. I instead brought it up to both of them, apologized for snooping into their texts, as I understood it was wrong of me, and vowed not to do it again, and we made up. Of course, I wasn't really happy as their apologies were kind of lousy. My best friend said, "You could have just asked me," though I gave her multiple chances to tell me, but I was willing to be fine with it and move on with my life. Until a few nights later, I heard them talking badly about me late at night, saying that it wasn't my business and that it was unjustified, as well as laughing at me being upset about it. Another thing I had a problem with was my brother bringing up my relationship with my partner to try to compare it to his and my best friend's. My partner and I's relationship is queer, and my mother isn't understanding of this. My brother has used it against me multiple times in fights with my mom to go hang out with my best friend. In no way is our relationship the same. If I had known that he and my best friend had anything more than friendship, I wouldn't have been mad about the PDA and how they were treating me, and I might have even helped. At this point, I was angry, as I thought we'd talked it out, yet they were still talking, as if I hadn't apologized at all for what I did, and that they were only hearing what they wanted to. They could argue it wasn't my business, but they quite literally purposefully excluded me when we hung out together, and they didn't even try to hide their relationship, so it was a shocker to me that it seemed like they wanted me to just be regular about it. I confronted them again about how I heard them, and they gave me both heartfelt apologies. Again, I'm willing to leave it here. I had an argument with my brother just the other day about how I wanted him to stay off my phone because I made a promise to do the same to him, and he told me to just change my password. I was shocked because I was asking him to do literally the bare minimum. But still, there's an awkward air whenever I come in from work to hear, "Oh, EJ's here. Say hi to EJ from my brother." They are constantly on the phone, and it is frustrating. Again, I don't have any problem with them being in a relationship now. However, it feels like I am losing a brother and a best friend. I walk into the room, and he leaves it to talk to her longer. He wakes up and calls her. She does not text me anymore. Though I'm probably just 16 and feel like the world is the worst right now because we're teens, but I don't know. AITA? OP is not an AH for being so concerned about her twin brother. OP's brother and best friend are both AHs, not for keeping their relationship secret from OP, but for mocking OP and for futile comparison with OP's relationship. As for scores, I would rate OP's brother and best friend 2.5 each, and OP gets nothing. Let's now move on to the next story from ThrowRA random name 753. How can I, 27F, support my GF, 28F, of 2 years during her therapy? I, 27F, have been with my GF, F28, for about 2 years now. We're both in individual therapy for some personal issues we'd like to work on during our relationship, so we can both become the best, most healed versions of ourselves. I've been in therapy before, and it helped me a lot when I was coming to terms with my... Unfortunately, I had to quit when I moved away to go and start living with her. Not complaining, I'm very happy with this choice, and I was the one who suggested it. I started my therapy up again a couple of months ago, when I got my ADHD diagnosis. She also has some years of therapy under her belt with different therapists, but it worked a lot less for her than it did for me. A year ago, she started up again with a new therapist, and has been making some slow but steady progress. We are both learning how to communicate within a relationship, although I'm struggling a bit harder than she has. So, now I'm asking you, Reddit, so please give me some advice on what to do about this. Since she has been in therapy to learn and to feel /progress /identify /emotions, all of her past trauma comes bubbling up more often, since her emotions are heightened in this specific part of her healing. I knew this would happen, because I've been through the same thing 2 years ago when I was in such intense therapy. I have been mentally preparing for this period in her life ever since she started going to therapy last year. A lot of times when she has these moments of more intense reactions over, usually little things, I've been able to tell myself that the intensity of her reactions or tone of speaking has nothing to do with me or the issue at the moment. I know that she isn't dramatic, and that her opinions and emotions are valid. It's just more intense at the moment. I also remind myself that it isn't exactly fun to be in her shoes. And a lot of times, this worked for me to stay calm, give her space, and when I feel she has calmed down, discuss these things with her. A good 6 months ago, I've noticed that when I came home, aka drove into our parking garage, whether I was happily singing in my car, overall having a great day, or had a kind of day, I became instantly irritated and on edge. I've been thinking about this issue for a while, and think this has something to do with my struggle to hold space for her emotions at the moment. I feel intensely guilty about this. I promised her and myself that I would support me and be there for her during her process, and now I feel like I'm not able to give her that. We go on monthly dates, try to spend a lot of quality time together, go on trips, but I still have this issue with my mood swings, and it's been weighing on me a lot. Can anyone give me some advice on what to do? Update. Hey, as you can read in my previous post, my 27F girlfriend, 28F, is struggling with some things in therapy. I tried to post the update on the original sub, but they sent me here, so here it goes. This is what happened before I made the original post. I promise this is relevant to what happened today. Last week, we had a talk about why she was feeling bad that day. During that talk, she told me that she doesn't think her therapy is helping, and that she feels stuck and on a loop. She also confessed to having thoughts about SH, but not the urge to do anything. She told me very early on in our relationship, she had struggled with SH when she was younger. We talked about options, and decided that it was best she went to the doctor that week to talk about it, aka see if there is an option for any sort of medication or other options that may or may not exist to help her. She also promised me that if she had the urge to do SH, she'd let me know immediately. So, she went and saw her doctor, and after when she came home, she told me that there was nothing to do about it. The day after my original post, I sat down with her and discussed my thoughts and worries. I don't really think she understood that what I wanted to just communicate this to her. and that she has no blame in me feeling this way. I tried explaining it with a metaphor, and she said that she understood. Although I'm not convinced, and think she is feeling guilty for not making me happy enough. She expressed these exact words to me in previous conversations over the last 2 years. Since a couple of days later, we both had therapy sessions, I suggested she should talk to her therapist to see if there is approach to her therapy, and if that could maybe help. The same day she went to therapy, I also had an appointment with my therapist. There we discussed my worries, and we have a plan in motion for identifying, coping with, and communicating my boundaries in romantic relationships. In previous romantic relationships, I've had no emotional boundaries in place. Up until now, I've been the person who carries all the emotional baggage within a relationship. Well, now, another day later, I have been cleaning up our bedroom and instinctively opened a piece of paper that was on her nightstand. This was a printout of an address of a doctor and the phone number of the line. I'm starting to feel a bit worried about her. Could it be that my GF told her therapist and she gave that printout to her? Should I just ask her about this? Or should I just let it be and see if my GF decides for herself to talk to me about it? I really don't know what to do. I know I could be overreacting, but since she told me about her thoughts about SH, I feel like I should be keeping a closer watch on her. At the same time, I want to give her space and take care of my own mental health. Does anyone have advice to handle this situation? OP is not an AH for prioritizing her emotional well-being. OP's girlfriend is an AH for neglecting OP's efforts and care for her. As for scores, I would rate OP's girlfriend 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Riza Lavu, AITA. For making my roommate find a ride home at night? I'm certainly not feeling good or proud at the moment. To start off, my roommate, 25F, has been living with my husband, 29M, and I, 30F, for the last 9 months, and I have been giving her rides consistently to work, court, and for picking up her daughter. We agreed at the current time to only put gas as the additional expense aside from her rent. Yesterday I told her, after picking her up from work, that I had mandatory overtime for not just that day, but also that week, as well as I would be working till late. Imagine 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. late. I also work remotely. This morning, I said in front of my husband and her that I still have overtime for the week. My dear husband knew it meant he would need to help me with the animals, cats and dogs, at home, and I told her I was working late. I thought she listened and heard me. Big mistake. So, we left during my lunch and break to get her to work. We proceeded with our routine, us talking on the way to her work, and I drive back home to work. I drop her off, get home, and work my regular shift, get a break in between my regular shift and overtime shift, and proceeded to work my overtime. However, that's when things started getting a bit hairy. She messaged me that she's off work when her shift ended, but I reminded her I'm working overtime. I may work from home, but it's still a job, and early departure is double the trouble if done on the scheduled overtime. I asked if she could wait. She said she couldn't. I tell her that I would contact my workforce to see if there was any VTO, but not only did I doubt it, I don't think they would for mandatory overtime for the holidays. She simply brushed it off and said, "Whatever, I'll see if anyone else will take me home." I suggested maybe taking the local transportation, as it was only a couple dollars. It's warm, there's cameras, and the stop is 30 minutes away on foot from my house. She then started messaging me, "Why didn't you say anything earlier? I could have made something up hours ago. Whatever, doesn't matter now." I then replied, "I told you literally before we even left. I had overtime today, and what those set hours were yesterday. I told you I was scheduled this whole week. I even said it in front of husband, with him knowing that it meant he would need to take care of the animals while I work. Why do you not pay attention?" This went back and forth. She then accused me that I was gaslighting her. I retorted that she was gaslighting me for something she didn't pay attention to. "I don't like your condescending tone," she sent. This is where I lost myself and messaged back, "Who TF are you to tell me about tone?" I'm being nice. I even said my hours in front of husband. Well, I'm not husband. My only response was, "You're not, but you were both there this morning before we even left." She only sent an "okay, fine." Something was boiling over me and I was fed up. I explained to my husband the situation and requested he tell her that she would need to find alternatives way home. But here's where I start to feel bad. My husband tries to keep things calm, but made it clear he would side with me. She messaged him that her boss called an ambulance as she had a meltdown. And another thing I had recalled was that she was scared of taking the bus. She's never used it before and has no experience with public transportation. She doesn't have a car or license and has compression wraps on her ankle, leg, and for her back, including using a cane currently. I feel like I left someone with a handicap out in the cold to figure it out of high emotions, when she pays gas in her room rent. And now, she's probably in the hospital because of this without a proper warning from me, just through my husband. AITA for making my roommate find a ride home at night. OP is not an AH for setting boundaries with her roommate. OP's roommate is an AH for being ungrateful for having shelter provided by OP. Instead, she accused OP. She did nothing wrong. So, I would rate OP's roommate 1.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.